Hi there, this is Dr. Everybody. We're going to take a look at Project 3. Project 3 is about generating some simple addition exercises. And so it's going to be loops within loops and some if statements in there. So it's going to be a mixture of those things. So taking a quick look at this, noticed from the project description, let's look at this one. So we input a level of difficulty. In this case, it's 2. Number of problems, we're going to do 3. So level of difficulty means there's going to be two two-digit numbers added together. So we're generating exercises. So and we're also numbering them. So problem 1 is add 39 and 78. It's 117. You check the answer. That's correct. And then another automatic problem will be generated. 11 plus 59. We have a chance to answer it. Put in 55. Wrong. The right answer was 60. All right. 91 plus 72. It's 163. So notice how each of these is a sum of two-digit numbers. There's two two-digit numbers being added together. All right, that's this part, and then there are 3 of them. That's this part. And at the end, it says, oh, you got 2 out of 3 problems correct. That's 66.7%. So there's a couple of things going on here. We'll use the round function to do that. I'll talk about that in a moment. To get these numbers, we're going to use random. So we're going to use the random package. In fact, we're going to use rand_int out of that because that will generate integers, because that's all we're doing is adding integers. If I take a look at another one, here's one where we're generating so our difficulty is 3, and we're only making 2 problems here. So problem number 1 has 3 three-digit numbers that we're adding together. And notice that by our definition, here's a 15. That's a 3-digit number. So it's numbers that are 3 digits or less. So 15 is a perfectly good number. So when we had difficulty of 2, we were doing two-digit numbers. Here we have difficulty of 3, so we have 3 three-digit numbers. And it would go on up with that. Also looking at, and notice that there's only one set of problems. Right? You say we give the difficulty, we have the number of problems, we do that many problems with that difficulty, program ends. Okay, to do it again, you have to restart the program. And that has an impact on the error checking, because when I do the error checking, you'll notice that if something's wrong, we'll do both inputs and then we'll check. Oh, difficulty is out of range. Program stops. All right. Here, number of problems wasn't big enough. Program stops. All right. If they're both wrong, we print a message about both of them. Difficulty was too small. Number of problems was not big enough. Okay, so that's the kind of error checking that we're requiring you to do on this. Let's take a look at a couple of things. I mentioned that that we need to deal with random on this, and we're going to deal with random integers. So in order to do that, we need to import random. All right, so what does rand_int do? Well, you can see here. So first of all, I imported random, then I asked for help with it. It says rand_int takes 2 things, an A and a B, random numbers in the range A to B, including both endpoints. So now we know how to use it. Let's actually try some values. So if I just say random.rand_int, and I say, okay, so let's go from 0 to 10, then it's going to give me a random number. I could say for I in range of 10. Let's print random numbers. Random.randint. We'll just 10 times in that range. And I forgot a parentheses. There we go. All right. And you can see that 10 times I called this function, this randint function. So I did this 10 times. I was getting values between 0 and 10. You can see 8, 1, 4, 3, 6, 3, 10, 7, 4, and 9. So there is a way to see how it's working, and you should play around with that to make sure that it works to your satisfaction. How about round? Okay, so round, notice there it shows up with a number and the number of digits. So if I take something like 45.67 and I round it to one place, then it rounds it up in that case. 1, 2, 3.4567 round that to two places, and so on. So play around with those functions, get a feeling for them. But so there's this, generating the numbers. It turns out to be one of the hardest parts of, or not the hardest parts of this, but a tricky little thing is this part, printing out the numbers with a plus sign between each one. And it's not rocket science, but it's real easy to do it with a plus sign at the end, but we don't want that, right? So we want to, when we print these numbers, we print the problem, we print the thing all on one line, and as I generate those numbers, I want to print a plus sign between however many I have. If I do, 4, I've got to do this 4 times. 3 is 3 times. This has to be able to work. I should be able to make a sum of 10 10-digit numbers, for example. So how might I do that? Well, you could play around with this. Let's pick an n. N is 5. And I can say for I in the range of n, and I can just say print I. And what will it do? It will print those 4 numbers. Now suppose I wanted to print them all on the same line. Well, I can say something like there is the ability to have end. So after I print every one, what if I put a space in there? What happens? Well, now I print them all on the same line. Okay, that's nice. Now we know how to print things on the same line. What if instead of a space, I put a plus with spaces there? All right, now when I do that, it nicely prints a plus between each number, but look at that. There's an extra one on the end. That's not very good. And so you'll want to deal with that. And guess what? You'll want to have an if statement in here to deal with that. And it's not rocket science, but I encourage you to solve this little problem. How do I print, numbers in a range up to some n? And I encourage you to think about it, with, for any n that you put in here, how can you put a plus sign between the numbers and not have one hanging off the end? Do that in the shell. So notice how I've used the shell. I played around with I used help, figured out how, for random int. You can play around with that a little bit, get comfortable with how it works. Same thing with round. Play around with the shell a little bit, get a feeling for how it works. And here I have this issue of, okay, so how do I print a bunch of numbers with plus signs in between? Solve it in the shell, get that working there. Then when you're doing your project and you come across the issue, okay, I got to print these values. I know how to do that because I've played around with it in the shell. The shell is a very powerful problem-solving tool. And as with other projects, we've also put in a set of suggestions. Divide and conquer is your way to go. Do this in pieces. Do a little bit, get it working. Do a little bit more, get it working. Keep adding to it. Leave the error checking for last, and I think that will be helpful. Remember, this has to work for any number any number of problems. So level of difficulty of 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 100 for that matter. There is no limit on that. Okay, hopefully that gives you enough to get started with.